Just let the people come in before we start. Okay, let's get started. Hi everyone, I'm Daniel Lindahl. I'm Principal Engineer and Director of Technical Enablement at Curity. And we're going to have a release webinar today. And with me I have Mark Dobrnich, one of our more senior developers.
Accurate description. I'm also helping out Daniel with talking through whatever we have been doing as part of 11.3. I'm working as a backend engineer and responsible for implementing a bunch of these improvements that we have been making.
Very good. Thanks for joining. So 11.3 is quite a big release. Many new things to cover. I think that we'll talk about most of them. I'll try to show at least one of them. But the highlights of this release is that we've created a login web app based on React, which is not replacing but living alongside the template subsystem for the authentication pages. This is based on something that we had for a long time in Curity, with the possibility to actually use HAAPI in the templates themselves to drive a single page application. But now we created a React toolkit around it that we also deployed on our GitHub. So we have all the components available there. And if it's not already pushed, it will become an NPM package to easily integrate into your build system. Alongside with that, we also created a React Native toolkit for mobile clients, which is a very highly awaited feature, I'd say. We already have a number of customers using a open source module for interacting with HAAPI and Curity. But now we created a product feature around that. So it's in sense deprecating the old open source one we had, but they're not a one-to-one map, so it will require some migration to start using these. But I hope you'll like it. I cannot show it today, unfortunately, but I think we can. It would be nice to take a stab at it if you're a mobile developer. We made some big enhancements to the TS, the token issuance authorizers, with enabling global, script, and composite. We can have a short look in the UI for that, how to enable those. And in our B2B stories, we've already released the skim groups, and the next one to build on top of that engine is the database scopes. So this is a feature to be able to store your scopes in a database and keep them entirely separate from the configuration model, to make it easier to treat scopes more like a runtime data and manage them outside of Curity. This is an experimental feature, and we will add on more functionality to it, but this is the first version that is there, and we have a GraphQL API to manage it. There's some admin UI additions, but more to come. Another feature more on the engine type of thing is the persistent background jobs. So we released something here with that has the capability to run scheduled jobs inside of Curity. Currently, the only feature that uses this is new in this release, and that's the refresh tokens with a grace period. We'll see the ticket later for the correct name, but what it is just being able to use a refresh token, and if that fails, your old refresh token is still valid for a configured time period. So to be able to help with those types of things, and that's using this new persistent background jobs. So by default, this is not used by anything, but if you enable the grace period refresh tokens, that's when it starts to use. And this is an engine, as I said, so we will add on more functionality to this later on. We've also updated the OIDC authenticator to be able to handle signed OpenID Connect authentication request to the OP. But I thought I'd give you a quick look of the login web application, where I'll just show a tab here. So I just made a OpenID Connect request to Curity, and this is my dev environment. So I have a whole ton of authenticators, but also if you've seen our built-in templates, they look pretty much the same. So the difference is rather in the background than in the front, in the foreground. Mark, do you see the network tab here? I'm not sure how I'm sharing.
Good. No, it's all good.
So the difference is here in the templates. When I press this username group authenticator, there's in velocity templates, it's a full page load, and we start to do again. But we can see here that this is a fetch request with a HAAPI representation. So every request here follows the Hypermedia Authentication API, which makes it possible then to create a single page application in your authentication flows. Also making it more possible to be more dynamic in these pages and maybe add on modals and things like that into your flows without having these full page loads for every time. So as I said, this has been possible for a while now, but now we're giving you a toolkit to make it easier to use. And to enable it, we have a new toggle on the authentication general, or a drop-down even here, where you can say the UI experience you want. So you can select to have velocity templates by default, or enable the API-driven UI globally. But you can also go into each client and say that this client is supposed to have the API-driven UI. Yes, hard to demo feature, but as I said, this is also a toolkit published on our GitHub, on the Curity.io GitHub. On the TI improvements, you want to say a few words there, Mark?
Yeah, sure. So in 11.2, we introduced the concept of the token issuance authorizers, which is a really cool and powerful feature to actually authorize scope issuance at request time. So a client has a list of allowed scopes, but depending on the context, you might want to allow issue a scope or actually deny it. So maybe a time of day thing, or maybe authentication freshness type of restriction that you want to have. So a powerful scope can only be released whenever the user has just authenticated. So we shipped a bunch of plugins there already. But with 11.3, we introduced two new plugin types. One is the script one. So basically the script one gives you the power to use JavaScript to actually implement the logic to make a decision whether to allow a scope or not, which is great because that gives you so many opportunities and so many ways to actually invoke your own deployment. So you can use HTTP clients to make requests to external services that can provide input to a decision making. That's basically the thing about that. Read more on it in the documentation. There is also the Composite plugin that we introduced now. And the Composite plugin actually allows you to chain a bunch of different TIAs that are executed in sequential order. So you can have different logic being combined there. Really good. Gives you a lot of the tooling that you would need to have configuration-based evaluation there. So those are two new plugin types that we have. And next to that, we also introduced the global TIA. A global TIA is not a plugin, but it is the TIA that is run before all the other TIAs are run, which allows you to capture every scope that is requested in one go, in one pass. And it can be used in particular for having for making sure that you can evaluate every scope that's being requested in one place, but also being run as the first TIA before everything else run. It might allow you to evaluate the scopes that are being requested, and once once you know that a scope is not going to be allowed, then you can filter it out. And if that scope would have had a potentially expensive evaluation operation, like making a request to an external service to figure out whether to allow it or not, you can actually prevent that if needed. On top of that, if a client makes a request without asking for scopes, then what Curity does is it considers it like the default scope. Since the default scope is not something that is configured as a scope, you are not able to actually bind a TIA to it to run it. But using the global token issuance authorizer, that one does get into the TIA subsystem, so you can actually make an authorization decision based on that. And as a result of that, if no scopes are allowed as a result of TIA evaluation, an access denied response will be returned now. So Daniel is pointing out the place where to configure the global token issuance authorizer. It's I wouldn't say hidden, but it's in a different place than you might expect. It's on top of the TIA configuration, and there you can just enable one. And if you have enabled one, like if you would enable the composite one, for example, Daniel, then you will see a label showing up next to the TIA configuration that indicates which TIA is run as the global TIA. So pretty cool improvements to a pretty cool feature, and I do believe we have more to come in follow-up releases, but we would love your feedback on it if you have it and if you use it.
Yeah. I wanted to point out the feature here in the script here where you can actually say require consent for specific scopes, which in my opinion is going to help out a lot if you're using the consent things, since before you had actually had to implement that in the consenter to make sure that you only prompt for consent for specific scopes. So this is looks like a small thing, but I think it's going to help a lot of people.
Super powerful.
Yes. Good. I'm going to cancel that because I don't want to do my dev. But here, so that's pretty much it for the demo part of this. But so now let's go through the actual tickets that we've fixed in this release. So we're going top down. And in the admin web UI, we add support for admin UI list of complex object in SDK plugin configuration. This is something me and my team have been asking for quite some time because it's a complex feature, but for plugin developers that create their own configuration types, this makes it possible to create your own objects and put them in lists. So before in the admin UI, you could only have your complex object as a singular, but now you're able to pick multiples of the same type. So for instance, I have some scope configuration with multiple parameters. I can now create a model that allows me to select multiples of that scope configuration. This was always possible using the CLI or XML, but now we can render that in the UI to make it easier to create. So if my team sees this, I'm sure they're happy. And I'm sure other customers have actually run into this as well. Next one, attribute query box in data source model is too narrow. So this is a small fix. When you're configuring the query to the SQL database, was a lot smaller than you would probably need to create a SQL statement, but we've enhanced it. Convert new authenticator and backchannel authenticator flow to modal instead of intermediate page in the admin UI. So a UX change. So we in many places we already had these modals to do wizards and similar things in, but the authenticator part did not use that. So now we're using it to make a more streamlined way of configuring. On the same topic, enabling DB clients was a little bit less UX friendly than you might wanted. So now we've improved it a little bit, well, bringing you to the correct places with the expected toggle still on and things like that. So hopefully that will help some admins. The alarm widget severity cards are now clickable. They've been clickable, but you had to click on a specific part of the widget, I believe, or something like that. But now you can click the full thing, which is easier. We've added icons to the data source that I can actually show here. So now we can see the type of the data source directly by looking at the icon. Might help some to make this a bit quicker to find the right ones. That was it for the admin UI. So this is authentication API. And when I read it, I remember we had a Q&A question in the chat that I missed. I can bring it up now. But I got the question, is this new login app only for HAAPI? And the answer is no, this is for any type of application. The login web app itself will use HAAPI, but that's more of an internal process. So talking HAAPI from the same host that Curity is hosted on. But any redirect-based application will load a login web app using HAAPI. I hope that answers your question. But in the process of creating this login web app on the React Native framework, we have done some small updates to the responses that you can receive. So, for instance, in the user consent steps, we've added in the type to some of the links. If I read the full one, it's user consent steps and do authenticator, where we added in the type for the fields to be rendered. And similar field is the text field has a kind property to tell the client a bit how to render it. So, for instance, we have the kind tel, which says it's a telephone number, so that we can render that in a specific way. So it's been used here and there, but now we're using it more, and we've added it to some of the registration pages and the HTML form ones. Uniform user title, action title, and form actions that don't require user input. So we have the form types of the HAAPI responses have both the title and an action title. And the usage of the two has been a bit not so uniform. And we try to do it the same way for every component in Curity. This should not be a breaking change, but if you see some strange behavior when you're testing this, so look at the upper guide to see exactly what changed so that you can take advantage from this. Whew, it's pretty hot in here.
Same here.
Okay. The bank ID authenticator. So we now allow you to configure a proxy for testing your bank ID. So the bank ID authenticator uses a predefined server to talk to either testing or production environments at bank ID. But some customers said that they wanted to be able to redirect that to a server, a mock server or something, just to do the testing or connect to a proxy before we go to bank ID. So we added in the configuration part there to be able to connect through a proxy and not go directly to bank ID. We only recommend this for testing purposes. More HAAPI changes for the HTML form one. Yeah, so in this case for the HTML4 one, we were using the return to log in as a form item, but in other cases we use it as a link. So now we've made that more uniform by making always a form action. Typically, a client should be able to handle this different, but if not, check the upgrade guide. So next, some OpenID Connect stuff. Do you want to take those, Mark?
Yeah, sure. So some changes to the OpenID Connect authenticator were made. One of them is to be able to add the response mode to an outbound authentication request to an upstream OP with the default to query, which is like how it always used to be. But if you need to refine that, you now have the option to do that in the configuration. And what more did we do? We also supported the signed authorization requests. So depending on where you deploy it, when you are dependent on an external and upstream OP, you should be able to conform to their requirements. And in this case, some requirements are that the authentication request must be signed. So passing a request job there, which we added support for in the OpenID Connect Authenticator now. So it's a great feature, and it's good to have that there.
Yeah, we had the private key JOT client authentication method, so we could send JOTs to authenticate the client, but this makes it more complete so that we can also sign the requests themselves. It's good.
Yeah, I can continue also. It's like we have also updated a bunch of our dependencies just to keep in line with what's out there. Also, with respect to following some of the new vulnerabilities that have been signaled, so we should be up to date again there, or up to spec. So it's the OpenSSL is updated, Apache Mina has been updated. And below there's also a mention on Jetty being updated, but giving you that already now. So yeah, that's at least when it comes to dependencies.
Yeah, I can take the next. So yeah, the dependencies there, of course, but for the distributed cache data source that we can distribute across your nodes, now also support the bucket SDK service, so that we don't need to use the buckets in an external database, but we can use it in our own cache layer. The distributed cache is still in experimental, but it's a nice feature to start looking into, let's say. And then we added some more dependency updates, Axios when needed. Here, so this is just in documentation, but the DevOps dashboard documentation page has had some stale links that we fixed. Same for the DCR pages, was some diagrams that have been lost, but are now back on the documentation pages. For the velocity template changes, we had on the consent screen, there was a misalignment between the labels and the checkboxes, so that's been updated. But more on the feature side, we have GraphQL, where we added the new queries mutation for linked accounts. We've added the possibility to resolve links, the query links that are there. We added a mutation to be able to create links. And I think there was a third, but I can't read it in the text. So maybe it was query and a mutation. So that will help you with the use cases of linked accounts through GraphQL, either by if you're implementing it in your portal or if you're doing some kind of linking outside of Curity. It's now enabled through the GraphQL. We've also added some filtering to the database client queries for GraphQL. So we can now support filtering by tags along with terms and client name. So we can use a combination of those filters in the queries for database clients. Next, we've already talked about a lot, the login web application. So this is the initial release where we will still continue updating it, but it's already usable already, but it's in an experimental phase, which mostly means that we're allowed to introduce breaking changes later on, but we usually don't do those breaking changes that hard to accommodate to. So I think you can start looking into this already now. And add a global TIA that is run before. This is what Mark talked about before. The TIA that runs before everything else and runs for everything, including the default scope. This is a new feature that's been asked for some time. They added support for dynamic issuer override. So if your Curity system acts as a token issuer and it might be on multiple host names, we can create those tokens based on where the request came to. So if I'm on curityexample.com, the token will be issued by curityexample.com. But I switch over and make my request to partner.example.com, they will be issued by them. So making it a bit easier to have a multi-tenant system for a single token issuer. And you can also, or you need to, whitelist domains that you allow to override like this. So it's useful for the multi-tenant part, but also for some kind of migration case where you're transitioning from one DNS over to another. Yeah. Allow a grace period for refresh token before revoking them when used. So this is the persistent jobs thing, where if you have a shaky connection or something like that, so your client makes a request to refresh their tokens, that will effectively revoke your refresh token. But if your shaky connection doesn't let you get the response, you're locked out and cannot get in again without starting a new flow. But with this grace period, we allow this revoked refresh token to be able to used for a defined time period after. So if we configure it to be 20 seconds, that means that if you lose the response, you have 20 seconds more to try again so that you can get new tokens. So this is running on top of this persistent background jobs feature, but currently only feature that's using it. Stop me if I'm lying, Mark.
No, I think you are saying it spot on. It's our way of being nice to circumstances that are in the way, to not lock out people, but also in a way to at least have security in place, so a leaked refresh token doesn't immediately raise a security concern.
Very good. Next, create a TIA script plugin, which we saw a short demo of. So good feature to have, since most parts of Curity are scriptable. So of course, TIAs should have the same. Another TIA, the Composite sequential token issue authorization plugin. So the ability to chain TS, more or less. Database scopes in experimental phase. So we're using the entity manager that was introduced with the groups to make it possible to store your database, store your scopes in a database, and link those database scopes to either database clients or clients in configuration. There's limited UI support so far, but at least the possibility to enable the features are there. So more to come, but this is also an experimental feature.
It's worth noticing that there is a full GraphQL API on top of it, so that's fully functional and fully usable. So feel free to start experimenting with that and seeing how it can help you there with managing large amounts of scopes or dynamically changing scopes or whatnot.
Yes.
Yep.
I got a question here around TS. Can we already create custom Java plugins like we can with other ones? So it's a TS in the SDK.
I have to be honest that I'm not entirely sure if we already allow that or open that up, but it is definitely our intention to do so. So I have to. I cannot give you the answer, but
yeah.
I don't know.
As always, the plan is to allow
Yes.
that plugin, but we're not entirely sure today if that's it's open or not. I know that it's already in possible in our development environments, which we could see if I go here. But we will have to get back to you on that, because if I go here, we have a test TR here. So, but it could be that that's in our internal SDK, but it definitely is going to be public.
Our intention is to make sure that you can. Yep.
Good. So where was I? Database scopes I've talked about. Keep rotated DCR client secret valid for a period of time. So similar to the refresh token situation, if you have a dynamic client that rotates their secret, that means the old secret is gone. But we added in functionality to be able to say that the old one is still valid for a short period of time. So I guess that is because the client might be using the secret in runtime, but rotating it in a separate context. So the time to sync it over there would be the reason to have a delay before that one is revoked.
Yep.
Ephemeral clients. So remove experimental badges. This means that ephemeral clients is out of experimental. So we took it out from the UI pretty much, the badges. Good to know is that the specifications that the ephemeral clients are based on is not yet the final draft. So not a final specification, it's in draft mode. So if the spec changes, we need to make those changes as well. And those may introduce breaking changes. But the status of the implementation of Curity should not be seen as experimental anymore. Is that fair?
Well formulated. Yeah, that's how it is.
Okay. Two procedures. The requesting OAuth client getter is just a way to get the client that is requesting us currently during our authentication. So this was available in most places already, but this adds it on to the rest of them. So now all authentication profile procedures should have those. So that's, I only come up with one, the transformation procedure, but that one already had it. So a few more in the backend probably.
Well, if it's the actions, most notably.
Yeah. For the REST API, the RESTconf API, we update the error message when RESTconf fail because admin notice reconfiguring. I think that this, if you're requesting something from the RESTconf API while the node is reconfiguring, we had a bit of ambiguous error messages, and it could be interpreted as something else going wrong. So we just updated the error message to make it sure that we're currently reconfiguring. Please come back in half a minute. SAML IDP servers allow adding custom claims to SAML IDP sign-ons based on SAML request query params. This is your baby, Mark. You want to mention it?
Maybe. The thing is that when you make a request, an authentication request to the SAML IDP profile, and ultimately after authentication, you are ready to get the values of the attributes to release the SAML assertion. You can do that through a script, and that script now has access to the original request that was made. So there are certain deployments that actually use this. So you have access now to the request, to the request parameter, to the query parameters, and make decisions on what attributes to include or what value to include based on that initial request. That's been added.
Yeah, useful in some cases for sure.
Yep.
Self-service portal. Add country dial code selector in the phone number update. Yeah, just a drop down with all the number codes that we added to the self-service portal. Server events expose original request parameters in backchannel authentication events. So when you're using SIBA and you make some kind of request, there's an event trigger saying that flow is started or flow consumed. Don't remember the names. But we've added the possibility to see the original request from the client into those events. So for instance, if they sent a custom parameter in those requests, we can read that in the event and log it or take action on it. That capability has been there for all the front-end requests before, but now it's also in the back channel, right? Allow bucket data source to be used as storage for HTTP client caches. HTTP client caches was, there were node local caches, but to be able to share the cache state between the nodes, you can use the bucket. The bucket interface can be in a database, or since we released it, this version, we can also store it on the distributed cache, which is, I think, the main idea for this. Credential managers, new credential migrated event. So we have the functionality in the credential managers to migrate a credential from one data source to another. And what this does is that when that event is happening, event is issued so that an event listener can figure that out and migrate perhaps the rest of the account to another data store or something like that. But being able to see that now this credential have been migrated and take action on it in an event listener. Persistent background jobs, we mentioned. This is just the engine that the grace period refresh token jobs are relying on.
I'm not sure if it's ahead of what we're going to say, but we made a little mistake in the database schema of the persistent background jobs. Something that we have fixed, but we have fixed that. We have released a fix in an update already. We will probably note that in the end, but just had to say that.
Yeah. Since this webinar was booked, we have released 11.3.1 as well. So I thought I'll go through those release notes, but we had to do it because of a security dependency update we needed to do. We got some fixes in there as well. One of them being the database schema for persistent background jobs being a bit too narrow. If you have service names that are a bit longer than the one we tested with.
Note that the fix is in the code, not in the database schema. So if you already did that, it's all good.
Good. Resolve path navigation in the resume path and resume URL parameters before checking whitelists. So some of the flows in Curity has the parameters resume path and resume URL, which will trigger a redirect over to those parameters. And to be able to do those redirects, we need to whitelist the paths that we're allowed to redirect to. So we've updated that logic to be even more secure. So we now need to resolve what we're doing in those redirects before checking the whitelist. So presumably this should be a little bit better, but we shouldn't change the way it behaves. Support custom headers on HTTP client. So this is, in many places we have a HTTP client that we can use to connect to different sources, data sources, or external systems. And we now added the capability to add custom headers to those requests. Before this, we have already added in like client info or hotel parameters in there, but now we can more customize them more instead. Some dependency updates. Jetty has been updated. OpenTelemetry API has been updated. And that was it for the enhancements. We have a long list of corrections. Those are usually quicker. So let's go through these as well. So for the alarms, the last race alarm had a bit of a race condition. If you have multiple different alarms, we could show mixed data between those different alarms. So that logic has been updated to always show the correct one. I think the issue was when the alarm was cleared in between the actual between getting the new alarm and things like that. But that should be fixed now. So the go-to element when you validate a configuration is supposed to take you to the correct place. And when using the action bundles, you were not able to get to the correct place. So that should be improved. Still admin UI. Service selected dropdown covered by a JSON toggle box. In the sign up action editor, you're supposed to configure a account manager, but there were some UI related fixes there to make sure that all the data is always visible. The drop-down menus does not close on outside clicks. You may have seen it if you had a drop-down open and clicked outside to close the modal. There might be still a drop-down left on the screen, but that should have disappeared. And selecting all on a filter table selects all the table items. Update an issue for the select drop-down where we can select all or none. Session expired modal stacks multiple times. If your session expires in the admin UI, we could end up in a case where the modals were stacked on top of each other. So that should be removed. So now we're into the server. Fix sessions growing bid with repeating authentication events. So if a client or an authentication session starts when fails midway through and the client restarts again, we will reuse the same session. And in some cases, that will add on data into the session for every attempt. So if that attempt is made 100 times, that this session might grow too big to fit into the database and end up with a 500 response. So we've made sure that this session won't grow in that case. Email authenticator, incorrect fallback when username is not submitted to the start authentication. If the username was not submitted in the starting authentication, the authenticator will incorrectly use a previously saved username cookie as a fallback. Yes, now I remember. We use sometimes this username cookie to pre-fill the form, but in this case it would actually not pre-fill the form, but it was actually posted if you didn't fill a form parameter for this username. So this was fixed, and the form itself is marked as required. You want to take this one so I can get some water?
Yeah, sure. So the SAML2 authenticator did not correctly validate the audience restriction. This happens whenever the SAML authenticator makes an outbound request to external SAML IDP. The SAML IDP returns an assertion that has an audience, and now it is actually correct. The behavior is corrected such that the audience must really match security when it's returned, and it will actively reject it. So since this was not there, and this is a dependency on external services, if this is in the way or suddenly starts to become in the way, there is a configuration option to avoid this or to ignore this. If there is no audience in the inbound assertion, then you can still configure this to be acceptable. But by default, it is not. So right now, the ship behavior is to conform to the web browser SSO profile that SAML specifies, as it should have been. And then the next one actually is the incorrect fallback when the username is not submitted. That's on the SMS authenticator. So the fix on the email authenticator is also made on the SMS authenticator.
Yeah. Good. WebAuthn, incorrect field name in HAAPI invalid input response. This is just an improvement of the responses from HAAPI when a client sent in a form without the username. So we responded with an invalid input, but pointed to the wrong field name. So it should have said the username, but it's probably said password, I'm guessing. Also WebAuthn, this is a bigger change, but the generated user handle when a user is registering a key in a WebAuthn ceremony, both for passkeys and WebAuthn. The user handle was based on the username of the user, but the username is mutable in Curity, so we could change the username, which means we lost the key. So we have now changed that into using the ID of the user instead, or an ID, so that we can keep using the same user, even though that the username changes. And this introduces some migration patterns for those that actually have made username changes. So the user will have to re-register the key. But that only applies if I registered with a username user handle and then changed my username and then logging in with Curity. We will recognize the user, but we'll need to recreate the key. So there will be a new ceremony. But it should be in an exceptional state. Slight upgrade fix. This is a background upgrade when we start new versions. We try to upgrade the claims configuration in the background, which works well. But if you didn't configure an account manager, it could fail. So now you're without configuring an account manager is a valid configuration, but so we now can handle that situation as well. Another one which will make my team happy. all configuration models in the plugin SDK, you can set a description field for it, which works really well in the UI for all fields, except when you're referencing a service like an account manager or credential manager. Those description fields did not end up in the UI, but now they're there. So if you have multiple config options for this of the same type, say you had 2 account managers, you can now distinguish between 2 a little bit easier. DevOps dashboard, hardcode user management profile name and fetching additional account attribute schema. So when we had a small regression where when logging into the DevOps dashboard, it was relying on the fact that the profile was created by the wizard and used the name that the wizard creates. So if you've changed it or you've created manually, then it would not work. But now we're reading the correct name from configuration instead. GraphQL missing error message when updating credential attributes for inactive subject. This is just an error message thing. If the user was inactive or not existing when creating a set of credential attributes, you would get not authorized error. And now the new error will actually say what happened. Again, GraphQL properly authorized credential policies for GraphQL operations. I don't exactly know the background around here, but apparently the credential policy objects when using the GraphQL API was not properly authorized. I'm not sure what properly means in this context, but I think likely using both the credential policies and also authorization manager. Ephemeral clients cannot use redirect URI and client metadata for ephemeral clients. So being a experimental feature, we did add the redirect URI policy for ephemeral clients, which did not, we didn't really justify that feature, so we removed that from them, and instead using redirect URIs that actually from the metadata documents that the ephemeral clients host themselves. But this is a breaking change, so you need to, if you're relying on that fact, you need to resort to the upgrade guide to figure out how to do that. It's not a big change as for the breaking change part, but at least you need to change the configuration. Ephemeral client validation error serves as 500 instead of 400 when cache is enabled. So this is where, when we're collecting the metadata from the ephemeral client, if we got validations errors from that metadata, we gave you a 500. I gave the user a 500 instead of the applicable 400. This could only happen when cache, the HTTP client cache was enabled. Prefix scopes should only be exposed in metadata if configured with expose and metadata set to true. So this worked for all the normal configuration scopes. This setting worked, but it did not work for the prefix scope type. So it should work now. SAML IP service template area configured on service providers does not take effect, which is now fixed. So you can use the template area on the SAML SP. Distributed cache deserializer drops bytes on payloads that span TCP segment boundaries. If the message between the nodes got too big, there were some bytes that could have been lost, which ended up with corrupted data. But that should have been fixed now. And lastly, for this release, token service does not take into account authentication clock skew. So this is between the SAML authenticator and Curity. If there's a clock drift between those two, we have a clock skew configuration that they should be respected. And in some cases, it was not. But now we should have fixed that as well. which marks the end for the 11.3 release. But as I said, and Mark said, we did release the 11.3.1 slightly after, and we managed to get some fix in there. The one we mentioned before, the database error from persistent jobber as node field contents exceed field length. This has been fixed on the code side, so we don't need to update the database schemas. So we should just be able to run that. We also made a dependency update, and we did liquid base. The upgrade of the liquid base failed if there already was if you use the initialize flag and there already was a schema there with a different checksum, it would fail. It shouldn't, so now we corrected that part of the liquid base instructions. And last, the Redux client GraphQL API does not filter out deleted scope. So this is the database scope feature, and seems like the GraphQL API was not respecting the fact that a scope has been deleted, but should be fixed in this release. So as always, if you're installing a new version, you should always go for the latest one. So we recommend you to use the 11.3.1. But that means we've reached the end of the release webinar. So a lot of new cool stuff to look into. Login web app, these database scopes, lots of new TS, and also the React Native toolkit. Lots of useful stuff in here. So thanks guys for listening in, and thanks Mark for joining.
Sure, welcome anytime. It's been a lot, but it's good to have it out, and we keep on going for 11.4.
Yeah, even more good
throughout the summer. Yes.
Have a good one, everyone.
Bye.